Welcome to Vital Signs. I'm Jen Gaudet, your host, and we are here talking about all things health, wellness, peak human performance so that you can maximize your greatest asset, your health. I am really excited to be here with you this week. We have an excellent docket of guests today. And remember that everything on the show is for educational purposes only. This is not medical advice. Please always consult with your medical practitioners prior to changing any of your routines. But without further ado, I am welcoming back one of our special guests, Brian Fetzer. He has over 28 years experience working with elite collegiate and professional athletes. Brian, welcome back to the show.
Jen, it's great to be back on.
So just for those who are tuning in case they missed your last one, tell us a little bit about the two companies that you have operating in this health and wellness space.
Well, one is Iron Faith Nutrition. It's a nutraceutical company. We mainly deal with holistic health, and it's a fantastic company. Natural products that go from detoxification into inflammation state. But then in the same breath, I'm the president of PsyOptimal Sports, which is a mental optimization and mental health company that mainly deals with the sports realm, but we also deal with ministries and we deal with executives as well. So it's a nice combination, having coached for such a long time and then getting into really the background behind being a coach with the mental side and with the nutritional side.
Well, I'm really excited to dive a little deeper today into mental health and well-being and the role of the mental aspect in elite human performance. And so I would like to just kind of ask you if you could shed some light on the connection between peak mental health and well-being and athletic performance.
Well, they go hand in hand. I mean, over the years, number of times I've been told, it's all mental, it's all mental. But the problem with it is we spend so little time on the mental preparation and mental optimization of sports and about peak performance. It's all about the physical. And that's one of the things you're starting to see this time around with people, that they're really putting a little more emphasis into their mental health, because if your mental health is not there, your performance is not going to be there.
Absolutely. And what really comes to my mind is mental resilience, because I was an athlete. I worked with athletes as well for 20 years in sports medicine. I'm a physical therapist by trade. And, what we found is it's that resilience piece. And honestly, we didn't train mental resilience back in the day. So talk to me a little bit about some of the things that you guys are recommending, some of the strategies maybe that you're seeing being utilized in order to kind of do the training aspect for mental resilience in order to have that peak athletic performance.
Well, the biggest thing is you have to understand where the issue is and where the issue lies. And it's one of the things that we do with PsyOptimal Sports is we do assessments to give an understanding of where the deficiencies are, where the strengths are. Because if you don't understand that, how can you teach somebody if you don't know where they're coming from? How can you help guide somebody if you're going in blind? You end up it's like throwing paint on a wall and hoping it sticks and hoping it's the color that you want. And that's not how life should work. You should have a plan and a purpose behind what you're doing as you're going forward.
I couldn't agree more. And we need to know that baseline, but also when we're stressed out or we're in competition and maybe we throw a pick and we're a quarterback on Sunday, we rely in stress on our highest level of training. And so having that baseline is essential. And then we have to literally practice these habits, practice this mental resilience, this mindfulness. Talk to me a little bit about what are some of those strategies, because we have people who are listening that could very well find something they could start doing today to start building that mental resilience muscle.
Well, it's good self-talk. That's one of the big parts where you can talk yourself and let yourself understand that perfection is not necessarily going to happen. And you have to realize that failure is a part of sports, failure is a part of life. And to have an understanding with yourself that, hey, it's fine, it's okay. What am I going to do when I do fail? What am I going to do when I do come through situations that are adverse and tough situations? One of the ways you can do that is having somebody to talk to, having somebody that you feel that's open, it's honest, that you can have a discussion with, to be able to confide in. That's one aspect of it. And the other aspect of it is just, going through some breathing techniques. There's a lot of different techniques out there, and you have to keep in mind that one thing does not fit all. There's a lot of different opportunities out there for different people, and it really depends on where you struggle with the most. Like I said, breathing techniques are one. Going and finding good counseling, finding a good person to be able to talk to and walk you through those. Somebody that's been there, that's done that, that understands where they're at.
I couldn't agree with you more. And in today's sports climate, we talk a lot, especially with the high schoolers and some of the collegiate, about having that safe space, that safe psychological space, and that for those who are not adults, that safe adult that can be there to be that resource. And it's not always necessarily in the counseling realm. Sometimes it's in the coaching realm. So can you talk to me a little bit about, hey, I'm an athlete. I'm looking for this safe space, this safe person that I can have to talk to, that can help me through this and help me with my self-talk and all the other things. How do we find the right resource as an athlete?
Well, one of the things, it's so true what you just said about your coach. Sadly enough, most coaches are not prepared from the mental side. It's all physical. It's all the time. Hey, we want a strength coach. We want, somebody that's very good at the tactics of the sport, whether it's basketball, football, it doesn't even matter what it is. But, having training and an understanding of where you can go, where you can get resources, where you can get an understanding of where that, and that's what Optimal Sports starts to provide some of those opportunities or some of those educational pieces. Dr. Wayne Chappell, who's an NBA sports psychologist, can provide, opportunities online. There's lots of content out there that you can go through and learn, within the sports psychology realm, within the mental health realm. There's certification processes that a lot of coaches should really go through to have a better understanding of how to communicate properly with their athletes.
Talk to me a little bit about, because you've been in multiple roles throughout your career and in working with these athletes. Talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing today and how this is evolving, because mental health and well-being has really been in the front of everyone's news lately with regards to athletics, especially in the younger athletes. How do you see this evolving, and how are you showing up in this space now, because you've evolved how you show up as well? Talk to me about that.
Absolutely. One of the things that I've seen, recently, and it's really sad. It really has to do with the instant gratification generation that we have right now. Everything's pushed through on social media. The influencers, they get this false understanding of what somebody is like. There's a false understanding of what extreme success is all about, and you start seeing that with young people, and it causes that stress. The expectation levels are so high. I could be the first one to admit, when I was coaching, I didn't really understand where you could be with an individual, what you needed to talk to them about. I didn't understand really. It was more about the transactional as opposed to transformational leadership. And a lot of coaches really focus on that transactional kind of leadership where, hey, you produce for me, you get praised. You produce for me, might get a scholarship. One of those things where we're talking about transformation. You're talking about, leading with the heart, leading with an understanding that you're showing compassion, that you're showing care for that individual. And it's a lot more than just wins or losses or performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really true, and I see that in everything. I see it in business leadership as well. So we really have sort of shifted as a society towards more of transformational leadership style over the years. And it's interesting because I want to go back to something that you said, and it's just been in my brain this whole conversation, and that's peak performers. We want to be the absolute best 100% of the time. We tend to be a little bit on the perfectionist side. We tend to be our worst critics, bigger critic of ourselves than even any coach or anyone else externally to us. So how do we shift that in our athletes? What is one thing that people listening to us today can start that shift away from perfectionism with a little bit more grace for ourselves. Maybe how do we shift that self-talk so that we can begin that resiliency process today, right now, something we can take action on.
You know what? I'd be honest, Jen. I would love to have the ideal answer for that. But I think it comes along to the bottom line of the fact that you're going to not have success sometimes. It used to eat me up. I mean, we would have, a loss or have some kind of event that we weren't performing the best, and it would tear me up inside. And I would want to figure out why did that happen? And you've got to do a lot of self-examination, a lot of internal thinking of realizing that it's not always going to be perfect. You're not always going to be best. And it's easy to say, but you have to realize that that's a reality truth. And you have to let the people that you're with and that that are working underneath you understand that failure is going to happen. And you learn more from failure than you do from success, because you can go back and evaluate. It's a lot more, optimal to go back and evaluate and say, hey, what did we do wrong? A lot of times when you succeed, you forget that you might have got there on just great God-given ability, or maybe the opponent wasn't quite as good. And to go back when you fail or you don't have the success that you think you need to have, it's real important to examine the why. Why, how, what? Why did it happen? Go back and analyze those things. The how. How did it happen? What did I do? Those are real simple things. And what just happened to it, and how can I overcome that going forward? Those are really simple words, but they're really meaningful and real impactful.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. We do have to take a brief break, but folks, you heard it. This is Brian Fetzer. He is an expert in this space. Why did something happen? What happened? How did it happen? And how can I move forward and learn from this mistake or failure? We will be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Vital Signs. I am here with Brian Fetzer. He is an expert in all things elite athletic performance and has multiple businesses in the space. Brian, we have talked about nutrition for peak performance. We've talked about the mental side, mental resilience, and some of the things we can do, accepting that failure is a part of the equation, and how do we learn. You gave us great tips for how to learn from those failures and move forward after we analyze. I want to dive into a topic that's really kind of hot right now, and it's a much overlooked part of the peak performance process, and that's the training, but the recovery. So many times, and we see this on Saturday in college football right now. If we're watching college football, we see this on Sunday. We will overtrain during the week and then maybe drop a bomb on Saturday or Sunday because we're not adequately rested. I see it a lot when we play on Sunday and then again on Thursday night in football. You can see that fatigue factor. Talk to me about how important is recovery, and what are some of the things that we can do to really elevate our peak performance through recovery?
Well, a lot of times I know personally, I learned over the course of coaching that less is more. When I say that, it sounds kind of crazy, but you don't have to continually crush your body all the time to reach the highest level. You have to do actually the opposite. You have to perform at a high level. You have to get training in, but then you have to let your body recover from that. And then the older you get, the longer that recovery time is. I mean, I remember when I used to work out, pretty hard 5 days a week, and I could bounce back. Or if I had a heavy lift day, I could recover really quickly that next day. But as we get older in a general population, our testosterone level is lower. We don't bounce back. We don't have quite that oomph to get back at it. So you've got to make sure you're looking at ways to get better from a recovery standpoint. Probably the biggest and most overlooked and underutilized is sleep. Getting the proper hours of sleep. Set yourself a clock. Hey, I'm going to go to bed at this time. I'm going to get up at this time, and put it in your schedule. Put things in there that you can actually control and get more sleep. That's the best recovery tool possible. What you're eating in your daily diet, and what supplements you're taking, those can definitely benefit. But sleep is the biggest one, and putting yourself in an area that you can get the best, most optimal sleep. Make sure that the blinds are closed. Make sure it's a dark room. Make sure you're staying off your phone prior to going to bed. Making sure that you're not eating too close to bed. Making sure, and this is a hard one for a lot of folks, making sure you're not consuming alcoholic beverages too close to bedtime. All those things can disrupt your sleep patterns. It can disrupt how you're sleeping, and also the inconsistency. Like I said, when you're going to bed, if it's 12 o'clock one day and 9 o'clock another, that's not good. It doesn't fall with your natural sleep hormones.
About quality of sleep. Most of these things, for those of you who are watching, most of the things that Brian has addressed impacts the quality of sleep. Yes, it's a quantity conversation, but if we don't have a good PM, nighttime routine that winds our body down and tells our body, hey, it's time, brain, to shut down. You don't need to think about that right now. And really get ourselves set for sleep success. We're set for sleep success.
Yeah. One of the things that I did in my later part of coaching is I made sure I stayed off my computer, my emails, because the worst thing you can possibly do is get one of those emails at 9 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night before you're getting ready to go to bed, that rouses you up. That, it might be that bad email, you got bad news, or you might have got, something that wasn't really, positive in nature, or something put stress on you. Hey, you just found out there's a deadline and it's going to come up. Your mind is going to be in overdrive. You're going to be thinking about those things, through your out, and you're not going to get a very good night's sleep.
Brian, I absolutely agree with you. Having that stressor at the end of the day really does kind of keep us in that stress mode, and it doesn't let us optimize our recovery time during sleep, which is, as we discussed, so important. I want to kind of go back to something that we touched on because I really want to dive deeper here, and that's the recovery time that we need in training as we get older changes. And this is really hard for people. Listen, I know I'm in a different stage in life, and I have to have multiple days in between my workouts. It kills me as an athlete to do that. But how do we know when it's time to take a little bit more rest? How do we know when it's time to make that shift? What are some of the things that we can be paying attention to as athletes that are kind of those indicators so that when it comes time to competition, we are at our best peak performance instead of fatigued or really needing a little bit of more recovery?
One of the things that you can do is there's so many modalities out there now that can help track with different ways of recovery and so forth. Whoop, Apple Watches, Oura Rings. I wear an Oura Ring on a regular basis. All it does is it's providing feedback for you. So you're not guessing, figure out, it helps you educate you on your body. Because one of the big things that every person's got to keep in mind is we're all not the same. We're all different. We all have different, ways that, we operate and we function, and we all recover at different processes, and we all need different levels of sleep. We all need different types of nutrition. You can't fit everybody in one box. So having some kind of a modality like an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring or Whoop, one of those kind of modalities to help kind of give you an understanding of where you are and give you feedback for your own personal journey. That's a key. That's a huge part.
And we really do. We have so many wearables that give us so much information. So that's a great way for us to kind of track things. Let me ask you the next question, because I think we touched on this slightly before, but I really want to dive into nutrition recovery. Can you talk to me a little bit about what do we need to consider, especially as we're aging, because our needs change there as well too. What do we need to be considering after, for example, our hard weight workout or after performance day? How do we incorporate recovery from a nutrition standpoint so that we can optimize that time off, if you will?
Well, one of the biggest things that we fall into now is inflammation, and inflammation is a huge part of everybody's daily life. It's studies have shown that that's where most of the chronic disease comes from, is inflammation in your body. And how does that happen? That's a key point to understand. And a lot of it has to do with the food that you put in your body and so much processed food. You can take supplements, or you can eat certain foods that help reduce inflammation in your body. Like what we have a product called curcumazyme that helps to do that natural form, turmeric, quercetin, bromelain. That's one way you can do it. But you also have to watch what you eat and stay away from those that are inflammatory in nature. Um, get an inflammation test. There's plenty of them out there. Feel Good Lab is one of them, but there's a lot of others. I mean, I don't really specialize in that part, but you have to get an understanding of what's causing the inflammation, what you be allergic to. A lot of skin conditions, eczema and so forth, are all caused by inflammation in our diet. And that recovery part of getting the proper fueling done, make sure you're eating meats. Um, Vegetarian lifestyle out there is for some people, but I know you miss a lot of the nutrients and a lot of the vitamins and minerals that you miss in fishes and meats and so forth, eggs. So, I mean, getting the proper diet is such a crucial part of the recovery process, and really watching and staying away from some of the processed foods, the seed oils, and so forth.
So I'm going to ask you another question. I think it's going to tie one of our conversations earlier today in with this conversation, and that's, we've talked a little bit about sleep, we've talked about nutrition, we've talked about working out right for our body and not overtraining so that we're ready to go for competition. What about on the mental side? We talked about mental resiliency and looking at why something happened. What do we do in the recovery phase for our mental preparation?
You need to take some simple breaks. You got to know that time off is a good thing. And I would be the one that would probably be the worst at it. I never took days off. I never took vacations when I was coaching full time. And I think that prevented me from being the best that I could possibly be. Your brain needs a break. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be, constantly in that work mode. Spend some time in prayer, spend some time in meditation, whatever that might be. Have an outlet that you would want to be in to be able to get away. Do exercise. Man, exercise, the studies that show what exercise can do to the body and the recovery state of just getting blood flow and getting moving, doing something you can get away, put the headphones in, go for a long walk. It doesn't mean that you have to be out there running and having this very, regimented exercise routine, but go be active, go bike, go walk, go swim, make sure you're getting out in the sun and getting some vitamin D in your system to kind of help with that recovery process. But really, like I was trying to start to say at the beginning, have some outlets, have some things that are not as stressful, that you can go ahead and do and enjoy the life and kind of get away from the work environment. One of the biggest things we need to do is put this thing down. Stay away from it a little bit. Don't get on social media. Don't get on those things. Because you think about, especially now, where we're in this political environment where, everything's negative. Stay away from it for a little bit. You get on social media. One of the things that you see on social media so much is, really is how good you're not. We don't want that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It kind of feeds into that like criticism and self-talk that we have. Well, why am I not? Why are they more successful? Well, social media, it just shows everybody's best foot forward, or maybe their worst. It depends on who you're following. But
yeah, Jen, how many times have you looked on social media? Do you post when you're throwing up, when you're sick? Do you make posts when the makeup's not on and you're just having a bad day? No, of course not. Nobody does that. Because that's not what the image that most people want to see or give that perception of what it is. Social media is such a fake world because it's only the best of the best. And you're behind a wall. Twitter and so forth. I mean, you can criticize and criticize and criticize, but hey, there's not necessarily ramifications for it. And it's kind of sad, and I feel sad for the younger people, the younger generations, that's all they know. Most of them don't know reading a newspaper. They don't know, some other forms of communication that they just know the social media part of it. And I think that plays so much into the mental state of young people because they see a glorified view of what everybody looks like on social media. And that's really causing some mental issues with them because they think that, the celebrities are the norm when they're actually not the norm.
Yep.
They are far extreme from that.
You're absolutely right. I really appreciate all of your insights today. Thank you for being here and for sharing with us. We do have to break for commercial, but how can people reach out to you, Brian?
Well, you can go to our website, ironfaithnutrition.com, and send it there, or psyoptimalsports.com. It's PSY optimal, OPTIMAL sports.com. They're both ways that you can check out our companies either way, and they can get a hold of me through either of those too.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And you stick around. We will be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Vital Signs. If you're just tuning in, you're going to want to go to nowmedia.tv. Click on shows, go to Vital Signs to catch the first part of this show because it was pure gold. And we are now going to switch gears. Just as a reminder, this is all for educational purposes only. Please consult your individual practitioners before ever changing anything with regards to your health and well-being. Without further ado, I want to introduce you a friend of mine who is a financial engineer. He is an international best-selling author, multiple books, 3 in the last year, maybe less. But he is truly an expert in all things wealth generation. And as financial health and well-being is a crucial part of our overall peak human performance, I'm really excited to have him here with me. Welcome, Chris Jarvis, to the studio.
Thank you, Jen. I'm very happy to be here.
Chris, I am so excited. I've been waiting for this for literal weeks, and when I saw you were on for today, it really made my heart happy because one of the biggest stresses that people are having today are with regards to their finances. And it doesn't matter how much you have. When the economy is a little bit more challenging or we face inflation, doesn't matter if you are living paycheck to paycheck or you're on the other side of retirement, everyone's kind of thinking about, well, what is that number and how do I supplement or get to where I want to be? But you have a definition of wealth that's quite interesting, and it's not just about the money. Can you enlighten us?
Yeah, I think, first of all, as someone who helped wealthy people for a long time, for the last 30 years, I found that no matter how much money you had, there was always some other challenge. So money comes at a cost. You can pursue money, but what do you give up for that? And I found that most people get stuck in the money because I was a mathematician. It makes sense. You follow the things that you can track, the things that you can measure, right? You can measure weight, you can measure calories, you can measure how much money you make. And so people get so caught up in the making money, they lose track of what is it costing me? How is it affecting my relationships? How is it affecting my health? How is it affecting my fun? How is it affecting my fulfillment? Things that are really hard to measure.
And things that you really can't get back. Like, let's be real. If we sacrifice our health and all of a sudden we have a chronic illness, we have to live with that. And maybe we may get to the position where we have the financial wealth that we want and not able to do the things that we were hoping we were able to do. We see that so many times. So please enlighten me. What are some of the things that we can do if my people are listening and watching today? What are some of the ways that we can shift that thinking? How do we shift our focus on what matters most to us?
Yeah, so my definition of wealth is freedom. It's the freedom to do the things that matter to you. And for me, I built an assessment for this because I wanted people to understand how their behaviors are affecting their lives. So if you want to know what are you doing, what's the impact of what you're doing, I created this Wow Factor quiz. It measures your life in health, money, career, relationship, fun. And it helps measure how you act, what you're actually sacrificing to get the things at the top of the list. And it's pretty eye-opening for most people. They know a little bit, but they don't know quite how much these things are affecting their lives. So the first step is getting their head out of the weeds and at least being aware of I know I'm doing a lot of things. It seems like I'm doing the right things, but what's the real cost of what I'm doing?
And so you made this assessment. Let's just talk about it now. How can people take this assessment so that they can get a baseline and understand what is it that they're doing? What is really important to us versus what are we doing and what are we measuring, and do those align?
Yeah, so I built the wow factor. The cool thing about it, 20 questions, 4 minutes, no more. You'll find out whether you're an eagle, elephant, monkey, dolphin, penguin. I won't tell you what those mean. You have to actually take the quiz and find out which one is you. And you can take it at chrisjarvis.me, and the code VITAL will make it free. So it's $20 if you want to pay for it, but it's actually free for everybody who is enjoying Vital Signs with Jen. So take it and learn for yourself what it is that you're giving up in life, and learn how to leverage your natural tendencies to get more of the other things. Because we all grew up a certain way. Some people, their parents were really great with money, and some they worried about money, or some people, we just all have different experiences. So let's leverage those experiences and our natural tendencies, and the quiz helps you figure out how to leverage yours to get more of the other things you want. Some people are too focused on money and they're giving up too much of their lives. Some people are too focused on pleasing other people and they're not so focused on money. The quiz will help shed some light on that, so at least you become aware. Once you know that you sacrifice something for something else, you have a chance to change it.
Well, and a choice. It's an opportunity to elevate choice and introduce choice into the equation. And so a lot of people, a lot of families are living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe they were not 3 years ago. And we went through a rapid escalation in our cost structure from a family standpoint. Everything from groceries to clothing to cars, everything is much more expensive today than it was even 3-4 years ago.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about, if we take this assessment, we realize maybe we're not where we need to be. Maybe we make enough money, but we're blowing it on some things and we're not using it towards our priorities or whatnot. How do we take the next step? What is the next step for us so that we can kind of have an element of taking back control? Because what I find, people are stressed about money if they feel like it's out of control. Inflation is outside of our control. But how we respond and what we do within what we're given is within our control. How do we shift that focus and get some of that feeling of control back so we can lower the stress associated with finances and put us back on a wealth building journey?
I think a huge problem is that people try to measure work-life balance or just balance in life, and they want to measure it in a day or in a week. And we talked about this offline. Balance is measured over months and years, not over days and weeks, and certainly not over hours. And so if you want to do anything spectacular or great in life, you have to make some sacrifices. And so where this plays in with the money thing is, it's like the diet thing where you don't eat anything all week and then you splurge with the pizza and the beer and the ice cream because you earned it, right? Or the people who are hurting financially and then they feel so much pain and then they go out and buy a big screen TV and blow all the money they saved. And so the benefit is, if you think long term, what am I doing this for? Where do I want to go? Then if you start having long-term goals, you're much less interested in the little wins or the little things. Okay, I'm trying to save money for this. You get excited about, it's not the, ooh, I can't order out today, I have to cook. It's, I'm saving for a vacation. So some of that is just getting your mind thinking about the long term. What am I doing this for? And realizing that you're going to have these, these cyclical shifts in life, that sometimes the economy's good and sometimes the economy's bad, and sometimes your job's good and sometimes your job's bad, and that's life. So you have to deal with the all over the place. I'm not going to get into budgeting and,
all the boring stuff?
all the boring stuff, but I think the boring stuff is easier to do when you're doing it for a big reason. We talked about starting companies. When you're first starting a company, my first publishing company, I was licking envelopes and sending out books, and I had a bubble wrap machine in my bedroom, which there was nothing fun about that. It was just, that's the only place it fit.
Yep.
And so when you're doing it for the bigger purpose, you can do the little things. The little things are easy to do when you care about the big thing. And so to me, when people are struggling about money, it's stop worrying about the little stuff. You can cancel subscriptions, you can stop buying things, you can sell off stuff. Gary's V's big into everything in your attic somebody wants to buy. Like, you can sell stuff, but it's think big, think long term. And when you're thinking long term, medical school is not fun. I've had 10,000 doctors contact my office. medical school is not fun, but you're doing it because you want to become a physician. You want to, like, they're thinking about the paycheck, or they're thinking about changing lives, or they're thinking about the research they're going to do. They're not thinking about, I got to take OB call and I got to be up till.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
trust me, I lived that life. I was in medicine, I was in sports medicine for 20 years. And, you know, I think what comes to me very strong from what you're saying is, if we have something that if we have a baseline and we know what we care about, that's the first start. So take Chris's assessment, know where you are, and use the code VITAL so that you get that for free. But on top of that, once we know what is important to us, we set that long-term goal, and there's short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. And that's something that people today hate to hear, because immediate gratification is definitely a thing in today's world. But the reality is, you know, if we want to set ourselves up, if we want to have a different experience financially, we have to make different choices on a daily basis, different habits. And so let me ask you, because a lot of times people think I just need to make more money, but really it's I need to make different choices. Maybe I don't need to buy a car every 3 years. Maybe I'm going to buy a new car in 5 years and take that extra money and put it towards something. So how do we shift from this immediate gratification and really these impulse buys? Because I find a lot of it is impulse buy that doesn't really give us any kind of gratification 2 and 3 days later. But how do we get out of that and shift towards this long term, I'm saving for a vacation, I'm doing, like, I'm purpose driven? How do we transition?
Go back in time and kill the inventor of the cell phone.
So that's not an option. We do
so
not.
given that we can't do that, no, the best advice that I got came out of Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. I read it probably 7 to 10 years ago. I can't remember when. And the piece of advice was turn off all notifications. And I turned off my cell phone 10 years ago. I have no ringing. I have no vibrating. It doesn't go to my watch. I have 0 notifications. I do not know that you called unless the phone happens to be up and I look at it. If it's face down, I don't see it at all. I haven't got a single phone call or a text in 10 years that's disrupted me from a conversation. And so I also have no email notifications, I have no app notifications, I have none of it. And to me, it allows me to get things done because I don't,
Yeah, you're not distracted.
I'm not distracted. And I just saw the research report that the distraction to get back on track is 16 minutes. And so when I was writing books, you can't stop. I mean, writing for an hour a day for 10 days is not the same as sitting down and writing for 5 hours. Like 5 hours straight, you just get into a groove and you've done it. But anything creative requires deep attention. Coding, art, writing, any of it. So what I think the problem is with the phone is people are so hit on the dopamine that if you're sitting there and you're distracted every 5 seconds by Snapchat, by an email, by a text, and you respond to it, then good God, your whole day you're reinforcing the fact that you have no patience. And then you want to not buy the TV, not go to dinner, not go out, not buy the new car.
Conditioning. I think that's sage advice. We do have to take a quick break, but folks, you heard it. Chris has the best advice ever. I did the same thing. I shut down my notifications. Turn off the notifications. Don't look at the phone except when you have set aside time to do such, so that you're able to fully attend and be present in the moment. And you'll find that that is actually a joy giver when we're present in the moment. We will be back after these messages. Welcome back to Vital Signs. I am here with Chris Jarvis, and we are diving into financial health and well-being. What are some of the things that we can do to pattern interrupt what we're doing to get out of that immediate gratification so that we can actually see where we're going, have something to look forward to, and achieve the financial goals and dreams that we're having without sacrificing our joy. I am going to dive right into a topic that Chris and I were talking about in the break. And Chris, money mindset is a very important aspect of financial health and well-being. And we all have stories. We all have things we grew up with. Some of us have really bad money stories, and others of us are very comfortable around
Have worse.
money. Yeah, that's right. Bad and worse. But the reality is, you told me something very interesting, that it was a long time before you had your first positive emotion about money. When was that, and how did that come about?
I was 50, maybe 52. And I had worked in the financial space. I had made more than $500,000 10 years in my life. I had made over $1 million 4 times. And I had done individual transactions where I made $500,000 to $1 million on a handful of occasions. So really big paychecks. And every time I got one, I was depressed. And I'd get this big check. I'd do all this hard work. I'd work with these clients. I'd help them solve a really complicated problem. And it would happen, and then I would be given money. And I just would go into somewhat of a depression because I don't really live for money. And I think it goes back to being a kid. I grew up relatively, lower middle class to poor. Parents got divorced, then was a little poor, had some welfare, and mom went back to school full time and worked and all those things to help make things work for us. But I was the oldest kid, parents were divorced, and I had to go ask my dad for money on weekends. So I get my only weekend with my dad, whom I missed tremendously, and I'd have to ask him for money. I'd worry all weekend about when am I going to ask, right? So asking for the check was a terrible experience. So I carried that, and I got into the finance space because I was a mathematician, really. It was easy, and I could see things that other people couldn't, and I enjoyed the helping you solve your problem to remove your pain because I had so much pain around money as a kid, so I just wanted to remove that. So it was more about the removing the pain, less about the cash. And so I realized it in my 50s, like I made a lot of money, but then my kids would order food out and they wouldn't finish it. And I'd be pissed. Like how do you buy, how are you going to order food and not eat it? And so it was well past the age of 50 that I started doing some research and really working on that particular thing and how do you feel about money. And there's a lot of people who aren't successful because they struggle with unresolved issues around money.
And and I'm going to speak to this because I'm a business coach, and I work with entrepreneurs, and we scale their businesses to do great things. And some of them have a really hard time with the money conversation, and they feel like if they are successful financially, then something horrible is going to happen. And we see this when we do transformational coaching on the life coaching side. They're successful, they're providing for their family, but they feel guilt over having more than other people do. So this is a real conversation. So talk to me a little bit about, I know everyone who is watching has some story about money. Most of us have something that is a negative connotation. Like I grew up in the church. Money is the root of all evil. If you've got money, you better give the shirt off your back because you're going to be a bad person. Like that was my money story. And so it was impeding my success at one point in time as well. So talk to me about the people who are at home watching. What is a way that they can shift this emotionality around money, and how can they move forward from there so that they can start to open up and realize, hey, there's nothing wrong with this. You're not a bad person if you're actually able to achieve a little bit of financial security.
So I have a story, but I'll start with a little context. If you have a bad feeling about money, it was given to you or it was inherited. So it came from your parents, it came from your siblings, it came from your neighbors, it came from your community, it came from whatever group of people you spend time with. For you, it was the church, right? So you've inherited this belief. So when you go to change, when I wrote Be the Giraffe, the big lesson about getting your head out of the weeds was one. The next is break free from the herd. If you're going to be like the people you hang around with. It's really hard. And as soon as you start to change those beliefs, keep in mind that the people around you are going to find it troubling. They're either going to be threatened by it or they're going to be unhappy with you. So when you change the way you look at your life, the way you look at your health, the way you look at money, you have to expect there's going to be resistance from the people around you.
Yeah, and that's part of the transformational process. Think about it. You're on a weight loss journey. You're doing this maybe with friends and family. You lose 10 pounds, they don't lose anything. What happens? Oh, well, you're not eating enough. You're too thin. We need to feed you more. You look unhealthy. Like it's all of these other things.
You're not fun anymore. You don't want to come out. Why won't you have a drink? Why don't you get pizza with us? You don't like us. You're too good for us. All of that.
And so when we're in a transformational journey, we will be tested. That's what that resistance is about. And when we elevate who we are, how we're showing up, the habits that we have, the beliefs that we have, those new beliefs are going to be tested. So how do we withstand those tests? Because love, safety, and belonging are basic human needs.
They are, and I taught a 2-day sales conference for people who wanted to make more than $1 million in sales. And on day 2, one of the questions somebody brought up was, how do I handle the fact that my family gives me a hard time when I'm successful? Like they come to my house and I just put on an extension, or I bought a new home, or I have a new TV, or whatever I did. And someone said, I worked really hard. And then I get in, and the first thing I get when someone walks in the house is, oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Well, it's nice because I worked my butt off. Like, it's not nice because it was a gift. And so, and then I asked the people, I stopped and asked the 40 people in the room, how many of you feel guilty with your success or get direct negative feedback from your family when you have success? And I was shocked. Out of 40 people, 38 people.
Yeah, I'm actually not shocked.
90+% of people are getting negative financial feedback from their family, people who are supposed to love them and care for them and want the best for them. And so a big part of that is realizing that what other people think of you is none of your business. And I had a friend once tell me, when I was trying to get people to appreciate what I did and the way I did it, his comment was, only seek the praise of the praiseworthy, which I took to mean, okay, I don't care what people who don't live a life that I want to live think about the way I live. I want people who live a life that I admire, who do things that I care about. I want them to see what I do and think positively. So a big part of that with Maslow's hierarchy, first it's survival, you have to have air and food, and then it's security. If you don't feel safe, you're not thinking about bigger things, and then it's love and belonging. And the research I've done on this, which is relatively extensive, is the super successful people define love and belonging differently. And it wasn't until last month I saw Brené Brown speak, and she talked about that belonging is actually the opposite of fitting in. And that belonging is, I'm who I am, and I belong to the group because you appreciate me for who I am. Fitting in is, I'm going to sacrifice certain things and not talk about things, and not because I think I'm not going to be accepted.
I look at that like dim my shine. And if you're watching this, you're in the wrong room. If you're not getting positive reinforcement when you're making positive changes in your life, then it's time to change a room. It's about being yourself unapologetically, and I love Brené Brown for this, being yourself unapologetically. And when we take those steps and we make these positive changes, whether it's a weight loss journey or it's getting our financial house in order so that we're really living our life towards our goals, if we shed some of those anchors that are keeping us held back because of the negative reinforcement, it's time to cut those free, because that makes space for what's new. So Chris, we are getting close towards the end, and you mentioned your book, and I know you have your book here, so I would love for you to share with the audience, how can they read your book? Because it's brilliant. My husband absolutely loves it. He asked me to tell you hello, and he's a big fan. But it's got invaluable lessons that are real relatable. How can they reach out to you and get a copy of your book?
So Be the Giraffe is Amazon. You can get it in Audible if you want to hear 4.5 hours of me teaching the book. You can also get it on Kindle. You can get it on paperback, obviously. Be the Giraffe, it's 14 cool stories about a giraffe, and then how do you apply it in your personal life? How do you apply it in business? The cool thing about the giraffe, I get this question a lot, why the giraffe? It's the only animal that evolved to be more vulnerable. And so it sticks its neck out, it breaks free from the herd, it does things differently. We're talking about money today. I just looked at this research. 8% of American families are worth $1 million. Only 7% of those families who are worth $1 million are worth $10 million. So you're talking about 1 in 168 families will ever get to 10 million, or 1 in 12 will get to $1 million. So if you want to get to those levels, you have to realize that most people you talk to aren't going to be like you. And so that love and belonging thing is, most people who want to be successful, the line that I like to use on stages, or apparently now on television, is everybody wants to be an outlier, but nobody wants to be an outcast. And so I want to be just like everybody else. I just want to end up with more money. And the truth is, you can't. You have to look at things differently, act differently, plan differently, think differently. And if you can, that's the first thing, is just accepting that just because other people think it, if I'm going to think like they do, then I'm going to get what they get. And if I don't want to be who they are and live how they live, then I have to be comfortable being myself and sticking my neck out. And that's how I'll see things that others can't, and how I can reach heights that others just simply won't.
And to those of you who are watching, excellent sage advice. You gave me chills with your commentary. I think it's a great keeper. That's a keeper. And it's about how are you going to dare to be different and stand out and shine, and how are you going to make sure that you put your priorities first, because your version of success is different than mine, is different than Chris's. We all are going for different things. We have different priorities, and that's okay. And our priorities shift, but we want to make sure that we have a plan to get to where we're going that's in alignment with our priorities. Thank you so much for your time today, Chris.
It's been my pleasure. Plenty of fun.
And you, yes, you, unfortunately, all good things do come to an end, including this show, but you've got really good resources. Chris gave us access to his assessment. Be sure to use the code VITAL so that you can get that assessment for free, so that you know where you are, where your priorities are, and what is financial success costing you, and reshuffle that, because we need to know where we are in order to get where we're going. And then pick up his book. It's excellent. And remember, be you, be unapologetically you, and follow your version of success, not anyone else's, and you will win every step of the way. I will be here same time, same station next week. Until then, have an amazing rest of your day.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.